Hey everybody, it's Mike from the Mike Wagner Show, powered by SoundCloud Studios, brought to you by our official sponsor of the Mike Wagner Show, international warring author Mia Molson's here, Missing, available on Amazon, paperback and ebook, coming soon, Missing 2, Double the Suspense, Double the Fun. Check it out on Amazon. Also brought to you by Sweet Psalmist by Serena Wagner, based on the life of David, including 30 exquisite pains and King David songs. Join the journey on the life of David, the Sweet Psalmist, Amazon.com, keyword Sweet Psalmist. Check it out today and support the Mike Wagner Show on Anchor FM, PayPal, and the MikeWagnerShow.com. Also on 50 podcast platforms, heard over 100 countries. Follow us on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, TikTok, also iHeartRadio, Spotify, Spreaker, YouTube, and more. We're here with an amazing charismatic author with a teaching background, versed in public publishing industry, and a passion for reading, travel, and range of creative pursuits. Currently in Chicago, and she discusses a number of topics, treasure hunting contacts and the bars you make for spell work at the right market, and of course, fantasy short stories, asexuality and queerness, and also the new book is a fantasy short story collection exploring the give and take between the fantastical and the not so fantastical, and a positive spin or not, positive outcome, negative outcome. It's treasure hunting contracts, barters, spell work, and a lot more. The book is called Fae Deals and Other Tales. Live, ladies and gentlemen, Plus Studios from beautiful outside Chicago, the amazing Chicago charismatic author with a teaching background, versed in the publishing industry with the book Fae Deals and Other Tales, the multi-talented Gwen Tolios. Gwen, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thanks for joining us today.
Indeed. Thank you for having me on. I'm excited to talk to you.
Well, it's great to have you on board, Gwen. So you're a charismatic author from Chicago with a teaching background. You're versed in the publishing industry. You have a passion for reading, travel, and a range of creative pursuits. You also discuss asexuality and queerness in your topics, especially in books. You have a new book, which is a fantasy short story collection exploring the give and take between the fantastical and the not so fantastical, with a positive outcome or not so positive outcome. Involves treasure hunting, contracts, barters, spell work, and a lot more. You had books called Tomorrow and Beyond, Healing Crystals, Return to You, and others. You have a book that's called Fae Deals and Other Tales. Before getting like Gwen, tell us how you first got started.
How I first got started writing.
First in your career, go way back, way back,
way back. It's actually probably would be like
way
third
back, Sherman,
grade.
way back, or into the TARDIS you go, good doctor, into the TARDIS.
Third grade for sure. I had a teacher who, during English class, we had to write a story. And I remember being so excited that my story was long enough where I could work on it multiple days in a row. It also meant I got out of future assignments. So I was like, yes.
That's a
Right,
clever way to get off the hard work.
right? Because then I could just continue with the story, which was just a retelling of The Shoemaker and the Elves. But I've always been fascinated by fantasy and fairy tales, and so if I could use that to just get out of some work and just have fun. So that's definitely how I got started, like as a writer way back then. I got started seriously writing though when I was in college, joined a critique group outside of the college, so with older authors, and they taught me a lot. And then sold my first story because I'm primarily a short story writer. Oh, good gracious, I should do the math on this. 8 years ago now.
Oh,
To
wow.
actually
Okay.
a podcast. A podcast was my very first sale. So then they turned that story into an audio episode.
Nice. Okay. What was the name of that podcast?
It was called The Overcast.
The Overcast. Okay. Now, and was that hosted by somebody or was that hosted by you? The
It was
Overcast.
hosted by someone else. I wish I could t remember his name. Like I said, it's been like 8 years ago, and the podcast no longer exists. But it was a science fiction and fantasy podcast based out of the Pacific Northwest.
Nice. Okay. I got some good people I know out in the Pacific Northwest, true crime, everything like that, which you can reach all over, which is great. And what was that one exact precise moment that simply influenced you into what you do in the rest of your career?
Um, that is a very good question. The first thing that popped to my mind, so let's say that that's the one, is I have always had a social media presence as an author, and I like to share short stories that I have written on that social media. And so I had one short story that sort of went viral to the point where friends found screenshots on Pinterest and then sent it to me and
Oh,
was like,
okay.
"Is this you?" And I was like, "Yeah." But that made me realize a few things. One, that I could actually quickly collect a bunch of my short stories that I had written previously and publish it via Amazon. So then allowing people to read my work. And two, that people were actually really interested in my short stories. So up until then, I was really just writing for me, and knowing that there was people who were interested and willing to support me to do it was really a pivot in my writing career and made me realize that I could actually focus more time on it and get better, produce more work. So, and that would have been 2020, I think now,
Oh
5 years ago.
wow, 2020. Okay. And what are some of the short stories that you mainly written about?
So I've written about a variety of things. That specific story was about a money laundering deal with the Tooth Fairy. So people seem to have liked it. But I have written a whole bunch of stuff since. I have written so stories a lot of times based off of mythology. So that first story that I sold to a podcast was actually about Selkies. I have written stories about Baba Yaga. I have written stories about also some sci-fi horror. Sometimes if I'm feeling a little spicy. Um, so, and a few stories also inspired by Greek myths. If my last name wasn't a super big giveaway, I am Greek. So I know it's a short
God,
Greek name, but it's because we're from the north.
gotcha. Okay, so you've got a lot to cover and everything like that. And who are some of your favorite authors and writers growing up?
So I was a huge fan of Diane Duane. I don't know if you could like I have like some one of her collections behind me actually. Specifically her So You Want to Be a Wizard series. I loved how it combined science fiction and fantasy. That was really inspiring to me. And also how the magic system is based off of the power of words and how you say things. So definitely really got inspired by that. Also Susan Cooper, and Tamara Pierce. So old school 80s children's science fiction fantasy, I would say.
Okay, it sounds like
Yeah.
you cover a lot of ground as well too. You've got some work yourself too with Tomorrow and Beyond, Healing Crystals. You also got Returning to You and Seidel's Ghost Hunt and Written with Pride and Triple Vision. We'll get to that with Gwen Tolios along with her latest Fae Deals and Other Tales. But first, listen to the Mike Wagner Show at the MikeWagnerShow.com, powered by SoundWeb Studios. Visit online at SoundWebStudios.com for all your needs. Look at a professional website without breaking your budget. Sonic Web Studios is the answer. Sonic Web Studios offers fast, affordable custom web designs that blow the competition away. Call today, 1-800-303-3960. That's 1-800-303-3960. Or email to support@sonicwebstudios.com. Mention the Mike Wagner Show. Get 20% off your first project. Sonic Web Studios. Take your image to the next level. Also, time to give an official shout out to our official sponsor of the Mike Wagner Show, international warring author Mia Molson-Zia. If you love fast-paced mysteries, you love Missing by Mia Molson-Zia, available on Amazon, paperback, and ebook. Missing is fast-paced and intriguing with an unforgettable twist. Takes place in 4 countries, 2 strangers, 1 target, where truth is illusion and those who love be the first go missing. It's available on Amazon and paperback and ebook. Missing by Mia Molson-Zia has got great reviews. And Evil Evidence endorsed by Howard celebrities, including Joanna Cassie, Forbes Riley, and many others. So grab your copy today for It Goes Missing by Mia Molson-Zia, available on Amazon. Coming soon, Missing 2, Double the Suspense, Double the Fun. Check it out on Amazon. Also brought to you by Sweet Psalmist by Serena Wagner, based on a life of David, including 30 exquisite paintings and King David's Psalms. The Sweet Psalmist gives a new perspective of David through the Psalms he wrote as the time of shepherd where it started and complicate your turbulent relationship with King Saul. It's a story of love, betrayal, repentance, hope, and more. Check out The Sweet Psalmist by Serena Wagner on Amazon. Keyword Sweet Psalmist Serena Wagner. Check it out today. Also, check out the Mike Wagner Show at the MikeWagnerShow.com. 50 podcast platforms, heard in 110 countries. Take us with you on any mobile device. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, TikTok. Also on Apple Music, Spotify, Spreaker, YouTube, iHeartRadio, and more. And for great gift ideas like t-shirts, pop sockets, throw pillows, tote bags, hoodies, Amazon.com. Check out the Mike Wagner Show podcast. Keywords, the Mike Wagner Show podcast. And for more great gift ideas, go to Amazon.com/Mia Molson-Zia. Great books, merchandise, and more. And support the Mike Wagner Show on Anchor FM, PayPal, and the MikeWagnerShow.com. We're here, the amazing, charismatic author from Chicago with a teaching background, Gwen Tolios, here on the Mike Wagner Show. And you before we talk about your books, you've been teaching for quite some time, and tell us more about that.
So it's actually been a while since I taught. But I think the lessons that I learned teaching have really just kind of stuck with me. So I started teaching actually in special ed classrooms. So which was kind of a shock for me. I signed up to be a substitute teacher, and then I ended up just fitting really well with the programs that the high schools around me had, or my county also had nearby schools dedicated to help people learn life skills. So I feel like I learned a lot there, how to communicate with different people. And then I actually went on and continued teaching as a Peace Corps volunteer.
Oh,
So,
wow. Okay.
yeah. So I ended up spending a little more than 2 years in Ethiopia. And how the Ethiopian program worked is it wasn't teaching in the classrooms, it was actually teaching methodology to the teachers. Um,
Methodology teacher. What's that?
they have a continuing education program. So in order to continue to be a teacher, you have to show that you're learning, like new ways of teaching, deepening your expertise in the subject that you're teaching in the schools. So I was there to serve as a sort of teaching expert, to say, here are different methodologies that you could use for teaching. I would work with the English teachers to teach them some of the methods of how we teach reading and English here in the States. The idea of phonics, for example, and helping them learn how you could use phonics to teach English versus just teaching the native language. Coming
Okay.
up with teacher aids, those type of deals. And again, it's one of those situations where teaching really made me feel of understanding different points of views. Having really clear and precise writing was very important in both of those situations. I think that has come across in my writing. A lot of people have told me it's very tight. I tend to do a lot of short stories as well because it's meant for, I mean, part of that is because it's really hard for me to hold an epic fantasy in my head. But it's also helps me be very concise in my writing and make sure everything that I need is there. And now I actually currently teach around at local libraries. So I will do writing workshops and publishing workshops for adults primarily. Um, but that's what I do now. And again, that experience teaching has helped my writing. You mentioned one of my books, Siddell's Ghost Hunt. I had specifically written that for children or middle schoolers who don't really like to read. So it's written as a chapter book with older protagonists, but it's a little more simple language to encourage kids to read.
Oh,
And it's
wow.
shorter. Yeah, and it's a little shorter than a typical chapter book because if kids don't like to read, giving them something shorter provides a confidence boost, saying, "Oh
Hmm.
yes, I was able to finish this."
Okay. And how long was Siddell's Ghost Hunter came out?
So that came out, was the first one that I ever self-published. That came out in 20 August of 21, if I remember correctly.
Okay.
Yep, so that's been a while. But it's still out there, and she's got a sequel at this point too about Siddell's adventure at a drama camp. And they are short, sort of like novelette lengths. But those are both available on Amazon.
Okay. And we're able to take some of the books and you used to have connections with the Ethiopian teachers, community, and all that. Like you could send them books and everything like that. And I was going to ask you about teaching in Ethiopia, that most of the African communities actually have high respect for teachers. Did it surprise you that they showed a lot of reverence for you as a teacher in Ethiopia?
I think a lot of the reverence that I got in Ethiopia was less with me being a teacher and more of me just being a foreigner. So there was a lot of privilege that came with that, I would say. And some teachers were very respectful of me, others were not, because at the time I was 22, and some of those teachers had already been working for 20 years. And
Oh,
so they
wow.
were,
Okay.
right? So that was a little awkward sometimes, right? They're like, who's this white girl that's going to teach me things? So it really did depend teacher to teacher, I would say. But there were definitely English teachers that I worked closely with, and they were so excited. And very willing to learn, which was good to see.
Hmm. And plus, you got some other books as well too, besides Citadel's Ghost Hunt, which is basically geared towards kids unwilling to reluctance to read, having a hard time reading. And how about Written with Pride? And tell us about that one.
Yeah, so Written with Pride is a anthology released by a small publisher. So that's a situation where I am one of several contributing authors. And everyone involved in the project is queer. So myself is one of the contributing authors, the editors, the guy who owns the publishing house, and that was released in response to Florida's Don't Say Gay bill, and so proceeds with that will actually go to Florida and queer organizations. And I have one story in that, and that's about a astronaut preparing for a solo mission to Mars. So she is going through isolation training and really missing her partner.
Oh, really? How is that?
So yeah, I
Oh,
thought it
oh,
was a sweet
missing part. I
story.
thought you said messing with the partner. I'm
Oh
sorry.
no, 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 missing her partner. Yeah. So, because she's facing a situation where she'll have to be by herself, not even with crewmates for 2-ish years.
Right. Yes, that's totally understandable as well. Oops. Okay, I had a little bit of technical difficulties here on the Mike Wagner show. So let's see. Okay, now we got the bugs straightened out here. I thought it was the Florida bugs that were coming in too. So can you hear me okay on this one now?
Yes, I can.
Perfect. Okay. All right. And then you also had triple vision as well. And tell us more about that one.
So Triple Visions is another anthology where I'm one of the contributing editors. What's unique about Triple Visions is that it is all local Chicago authors. So my writers group tends to do a workshop every year where you submit a story and it goes through 4 rounds of drafts. So we critique each other's work. You can see it improve from draft one all the way to the final draft four. And then we publish an anthology every year. And Triple Visions was one of our recent ones all around the theme of three. And in my case, my story is based off of a Baba Yaga tale with 3 writers, a red writer, a white writer, and a black writer representing different parts of the day, and a girl trying to find Baba Yaga to ask her to teach her how to be a witch.
What is that? The Baba Yaga? What is that? You
Oh, Baba
mentioned
Yaga.
briefly.
Yeah, sorry. So this is one of those situations where I realize I'm probably know a lot more about fairy tales and folklore than most people. It's just an interest of mine. So Baba Yaga is a Slavic tale. So she is a witch who lives in a house on chicken legs that moves around. Sometimes she'll move around her in a mortar and pestle. So she'll sit in the mortar and she'll use the pestle to walk around. She is frequently seen as a witch character, who gives lessons to girls, or is also just can be a villain in some of the other tales, depending on what version you're reading. Just like there's different versions of like animal bride tropes or Cinderella, there's different versions of Baba Yaga.
And plus, you also had healing crystals as well too. And tell more about that.
Yeah, so that is my longest short story collection. And actually the only one, oddly enough, that has anything inspired by the Greek myths, because it took me a while to feel comfortable enough to write those. But I'm excited for that one. So that is a lot of stories about things that break, sometimes intentionally, sometimes not. So for example, I have a story about someone who's realizing maybe the gods aren't real, so her faith is being broken. I have another story about a superhero who is realizing that his powers are starting to fail him because he's supposed to be invulnerable and now he's breaking bones. And then, of course, crystals that people are trying to use to heal their party members, and then they're no longer a reliable magical tool.
Hmm.
So lots of good stuff in there. It's also some of my longer pieces. That's one of the reasons why it's my biggest anthology. A lot of my the stories in Tomorrow and Beyond and Fae Deals are flash fiction, so under 1,000 words. Healing Crystals has stuff that are more towards the 3,000 mark.
That's really interesting. And this just came to mind as well too. And I forgot to ask you earlier. What was that first moment that you got involved with fantasy and princesses, fairy tales? Now, what was that one moment that really got you interested in?
Um, I don't remember a moment, and so I think it probably would have just had to been the fact that I am Greek. It was a distinguishing feature that I had as a child. Like, hey, I'm Greek. Here are all of these Greek myths. So especially my mother's name is Athena, which is, one of the
Ah,
gods in the
got it.
Parthenon.
Okay.
Right, I have a cousin named Arti, which is the Greek version of Artemis. It just kind of I feel like it was a natural thing for me to fall into. I don't remember falling into it. I was always interested in the Greek mythology. I will blame Susan Cooper and some of those books that I mentioned before for getting me into like the Welsh and Arthurian legends.
Uh-huh.
And then from there, I just kind of divulged into everything.
What is difference with Susan Welsh? You talked about that.
So Welsh is depending on how you want to break it up, right? Like, there's Welsh fairy tales and there's Irish fairy tales, and then Irish fairy tales are a lot more fae-based. Welsh fairy tales are a lot more of that's actually where the origin of the Arthurian legends came from. So there are some fae elements in there, but it's more about warlords and trips to the underworld and king leaders.
Okay. And of course, speaking of fa- Fae Deals as well, too, you got Fail Deals and Other Tales. We'll talk about the Gwen Tolios. You listen to The Mike Wagner Show at themikewagnershow.com, powered by SoundCloud Studios, brought to you by official sponsor of The Mike Wagner Show, international warring author Mia Mosenzi Missing, the Sweet Psalms by Serena Wagner, based on the life of David, including 30 exquisite paintings, and Kid David Psalms, Amazon.com, keyword Sweet Psalms Serena Wagner. We'll be back with you, multi-talent author Gwen Tolios of Fae Deals and Other Tales after this time. Rebecca author Gwen Tolios of Chicago with Fae Deals and Other Tales here on the Mike Wagner Show. And before we get to that, we have one we forgot to mention, Returning to You, and tell us more about that one.
Oh yeah, so Returning to You is actually my only novel. So like I mentioned before, I'm primarily a short story writer. So that is a sapphic romance between two bisexual women. And it's about a woman, Monica, who was a digital nomad, and in doing so, her relationship with her father really started to deteriorate. So she comes back to Chicago, hoping to repair that relationship. It doesn't go very well, and as a result, instead of staying with her dad, she moves in with her best friend from college, only to realize the college crush that she had never went away. So,
Oh no.
right, and now she's living with her, so it gets a little awkward. Um, so there is the romantic plot element of it. And then there's also the family drama portion of Monica trying to rekindle the relationship she had with her dad.
Okay. And how did you first get interested in that subject?
So a few things. It was a combination, I think, of stuff that had just been happening in my life. For the risk of spoilers, what is ended up happening with Monica's dad is he has early onset dementia. So that's what's kind of been deteriorating the relationship between them. And at the time, I actually had a friend whose mother was going through that when I was writing the book, where the mom would actually be calling me, convinced that we were still in college, and so thought that I could get a hold of her daughter, and it just wasn't quite working out. It had been a few years at that point. So that was definitely one of the point of context that I was kind of working my way through there. Um, the other thing is, I will admit, Returning to You originally started as a friendship breakup novel, not a romance. I had wanted to write about friends on opposite sides of a spectrum and see, and kind of talk through what would happen if they can no longer see eye to eye. Except all of my beta readers were like, no, this actually reads like a romance. So I had to make some tweaks and now it's a romance. But that hadn't been the original intention of the book. It just morphed and turned into a romance as I went through all the writing of it.
Oh my gosh, that is rather interesting how it came about. I mean, your friends could use some healing crystals right now, right? So through Faye.
Indeed.
Yes, indeed, as well. And you will get to the book with Fae Deals and Other Tales. And tell us more about the book as well. Treasure hunting contracts, barter, spell work, and everything like that. And tell us more about the book.
Yeah, so Fae Deals and Other Tales is a collection of short stories, mainly with the Fae. So I mentioned a story before about getting into a money laundering deal with the Tooth Fairy. So that is one of them. There's also a story about asking fairies for spell checkers. So kind of like the idea of right now, I consider myself a spell check child. I'm writing and I have a word to spell check for me all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So the
Right.
idea of having a magical device that will check your spell work for you, physically alter the words that you were saying as a magical element. There's stories about witches performing spells successfully or not successfully. Um, So, as well as back alley deals to buy things from suspicious characters that may or may not be cursed. So, there's a whole bunch of fun stories in there. I am also working on an audiobook. I have it recorded, but the editing of files has been taking a long time.
Oh, we've been
Um,
there, done that. Believe me.
yeah, it's a little more difficult than I thought it would be. Um, but yeah, that's essentially what Fae Deals is. So, lots of fantasy stories. There are 22 in total, if I'm
Oh,
remembering that
wow.
correctly.
Okay.
Yes.
Which one's your most favorite of all?
Probably the one about the money laundering deal with the Tooth Fairy. So it's just a cute idea, and it's something that I would like to go back to one day, maybe expand and have it be a longer story. But there's another story that I also like that's much shorter. It's flash fiction about someone who casts a spell for the perfect lover, and she gets a cat. So
Oh, that was perfect. I'll tell you.
so yeah, I mean that's what happens if you use a cat toy in your spell, but you know.
Oh, yeah. Or it's like playing with nine lives and everything like that. That will take on different meaning. What happens? You're curious about nine lives? Well, I guess that's another short story right there. And where can we
Right.
find Fae Deals and Other Tales all your works at, Gwen?
So it's actually pretty wide. So you can find it on Amazon, but you could also find it on Barnes and Noble. You can find it on Kobo. Fae Deals is also, if you're a library person, it's on Hoopla. So you can download it from the Hoopla app and read it there.
Okay. And what's your website and how do people get a hold of you?
Yep. So my website is www.gwentolios.com. So it's just my name. And I am on social media, primarily on Instagram, Blue Sky, and Tumblr as Gwen Tolios. I do also have a TikTok, but I'm not there very often. And if you Google my name, you will find me.
All right, we'll certainly do that. We're here with the amazing author Gwen Tolios of Fae Deals and Other Tales here on the Mike Wagner Show. Gwen, just a few more things. What else can we expect from you 2025 and beyond?
So I'm actually working on a series of stories called Chicago's Grimm, which is a reimagining of the Grimm's fairy tales set in
Oh,
Chicago.
yes, yes, that's clever. Maybe a fairy tale about the Cubs or the White Sox or Bulls, Blackhawks, anything like that, or the
Yeah.
Bears.
Right? So that's actually I'm releasing stories for free on my Substack, so people can read that now. I'm currently in the process of writing the story based off of Rumpelstiltskin, so that's coming up. But that's what's next for 2025 for me, focusing on that one.
And certainly, I can imagine Rumpelstiltskin trying to let down her hair from the Sears Tower. I still call it the Sears Tower. Some people call it Willis. I can imagine let down your hair from the Sears Tower, babe.
Right? So, but I'm with you. It's always going to be the Sears Tower for me.
It does. You're right, and certainly looking forward to it. Who do you consider biggest influence in a career?
In career.
Yes.
Um, I have always been impressed by Rick Riordan. So he is a middle grade fantasy author, who is very prolific, but has also been very good to the community to the point where he started his own imprint to give a space for marginalized voices to have their works published. So he's been a good advocate as well as a good writer, and that's inspiring.
Okay. What's the best advice you can give to anybody at this point?
Join a writers group. There's a lot that you could learn from a writers group. So how to write, how to publish. They also just provide really good accountability, even if it's just, hey, let's set up time and meet up at a coffee shop once a month. Um, Knowing that you're not going at something alone and that you have someone to bounce ideas off of is amazing.
And certainly amazing as well, too. We're here with author Gwen Tolios of Fae Deals and Other Tales here on the Mike Wagner Show. Gwen, a very big thank you for your time. You've been absolutely fantastic. Learned a lot.
Thanks
Looking
for
forward to
having
having
me.
soon. Sure, keep us up to date. Keep in touch. Live have you back. And what's your website? How do people contact you? Where can people purchase or check out your books?
Yep. So you can find me anywhere as Gwen Tolios. So gwentolios.com would be the website. And any of my socials will be Gwen. You can find me on Amazon. You can find me on Hoopla. You can find me on Barnes and Noble and Kobo, any place books are sold.
We'll certainly check that out. Once again, Gwen, a very big thank you for your time. You've been absolutely fantastic. Looking forward to having soon. Keep us up to date. Keep in touch. Live at back. We wish you all best. And Gwen, you definitely have a great future ahead of you.
Thanks.